Now, y'all know I love Harry Potter as much as the next witch, okay? But I absolutely hate that they made Snape black. And here's why. Now, I know some people are really celebrating the decision that Snape is going to be black in the new series, but I think we need to take a step back and examine what this actually means within the context of the story, because not all representation is good representation. Snape's entire arc revolves around him being a bitter, morally gray character who was bullied and radicalized and ultimately spent his life in service to a system that never truly valued him. His character is defined by resentment and proximity to power and self-sacrifice for a group that never fully accepted him. Introducing race into this role completely changes the subtext of his story. Let's also not overlook the fact that Snape benefited from the privilege associated with being a white man that allowed him to exist in these spaces. Despite the fact that he had a poor attitude and he had a very troubling past, he was still granted power and authority. He was openly nasty to students and held lifelong grudges and was still given a prestigious teaching position at Hogwarts. If Snape had been a black man, do we really believe he would have been treated the same way? That Dumbledore would have trusted him so implicitly? That he would have been allowed to openly antagonize students without any consequences? That he could have been a former Death Eater and still been placed in a position of power? You can't just pluck out the white and replace it with black like nothing happened. Race affects how a character is perceived and treated in the world they exist in. In Hogwarts, like any other institution in a hierarchical society, would not have extended the same grace to a black man with Snape's past and attitude and allegiances. His opportunities would have been different. His punishments likely would have been harsher, and his arc would not have played out in the same way. Also, out of all the characters they could have chosen to race swap, why Snape? They picked a character whose entire existence relies on being accepted and given power within a system that would not have treated him the same way if he were black. Diversity and casting is important, but if you're not willing to examine how race impacts a character's journey, you're not actually giving representation. You're just checking a box. If this were a completely reimagined story that actively explored these themes, that would be one thing. But they've already told us that it's supposed to be a faithful adaptation and not deviating from the books. So, now we know that they've casted a black actor to play Snape, but are leaving the story unchanged, which means they are effectively ignoring how this new racial context shifts the meaning of everything. Representation isn't just about putting black faces in popular franchises. It's about making sure those stories serve us rather than placing us in roles that reinforce harmful dynamics. Like, does this choice actually make the story better? Or does it introduce a racial element that the writers will refuse to acknowledge while expecting us to ignore it? I don't know, man. But me personally, having a black Snape is not something I needed in my Harry Potter. I'm still gonna watch it though.